What are you investing in? What are you looking at? Who comes to you now and says, check this out?
I mean, there's a lot going on. There's disruptive commerce. You look at traditional old line industries that are being changed and challenged every day. We have an exciting company in New York called Freshly, which is a new way of buying food and a new way of eating at home. We have a whole line of commerce companies. And a lot of the businesses that you look at that are traditional are stuck in their ways. They couldn't change if their life depended on it. And there's a wave of new entrepreneur that is looking to come along and challenge those folks. A lot of stuff going on around the idea of autonomy and autonomous driving, autonomous software. We have investments in autonomous vehicles, drones, autonomous software. Basically, it's software operating in the place of people. It's strong. A lot in the way of cybersecurity. That's a threat that will not end. And as quick as the software companies come that look to stop it, there's a new bad guy that shows up with a new alternative. So that's a never-ending process that I think if you look 5, 10 years from now, that will continue on and it won't slow down. We do a good bit in the future of work and the future of education, how we train young people and the new skills that they need to develop in an emerging economy. So a lot of exciting areas to still invest.
I just wonder where all these disruptive technologies seem to, try to take the fat out of a lot of industries that it doesn't need to be there. And I just wonder what's still left for disruption. What you said about college, I mean, I wonder about college sometimes, especially with all we've seen recently and how much it costs. And I just wonder if there are probably disruptive ways to get a great education that doesn't involve $80,000 a year, I would think.
Wildly disruptive. So we have a business called Trilogy Education that we're investors in. And what these guys is they don't focus on a college degree. These guys focus on giving the technical job skills that are necessary to compete in today's environment. I don't need necessarily to have that PhD in computer science to be a good frontline programmer. And what these guys do, along with working with some of the top universities in the country, they'll provide you the ability to get a certificate in a particular skill. So if I want to learn front-end programming or design, these guys will provide the skill set necessary. I think what's amazing, though, is the way many of these companies today are using data. I mean, we hear a lot about the data that Facebook and Google use that attacks our privacy. But you look at the way traditional commerce companies are using data to make the consumer experience stronger. That's a tough thing to compete with. And again, traditional old line companies have a really tough time doing that.
What's going to happen with tech? Can we self-regulate, you think? Is there a big, scary regulatory onslaught coming from Washington with tech and privacy, something akin to Europe, or do we just like the wild, wild west over here? I mean, I joke around that what's the name of the FANG stocks in Europe, and it's NONE is their acronym for what goes on. They don't even have one. So I mean, are we going to kill the goose that laid the golden egg, or?
I don't know. I mean, we're doing an okay, not a great job. We're doing an okay job at self-regulation today, and it often takes a crisis before we jump in and do that. But there's so many interested parties, including Facebook and Google, to look at self-regulation before the government takes over. I mean, the use of data, to be clear, is a really good thing if it's used properly. I mentioned that some of these commerce companies and how they use data. At Freshly, I use data to determine what meal you like and how you like it cooked. I mean, that's a good thing. If I use data, however, to look at your browsing history and to use in some malware type of basis that says, I'm going to expose who you are to the world in a way that I don't want exposed, that's not a good thing. So it's the balance that we're trying to find, and I think the industry is working hard at that each and every day to find the right mix. But there's too many parties that have too much at stake for it not to get figured out before the government has to come in and take control. Because if that happens, what's the only thing that's likely is they're probably going to have a very complicated and a very confusing solution.
You have cybersecurity startups come to you. I mean, are we ready for the Internet of Things? Can my pacemaker, can I feel comfortable having someone else running my pacemaker that I'm not hackable?
I don't know if you are. I don't know if you are at all. I think it's the probably the greatest threat to this country today is the cybersecurity hacks that we're going to find. And I don't think we've scratched the surface in terms of what could happen versus what has happened. And, we hear the doomsday scenarios about people taking over the power grids and the banking systems and a whole host of other areas that are threats to our day-to-day life. Well, that's real world stuff, and we need to be ever vigilant or it does happen. So are you safe with your pacemaker being taken over? I'm not sure your pacemaker is the target, but are we safe on the Internet of Things? I don't think so. I don't think we are at all, and we need ever increasingly strong skill sets amongst young pioneers and young developers to be able to solve for these solutions. It is a big, big threat.
Well, next time someone comes to you with some stupid, social media messaging something or other, why don't you say, I'm not giving you any money, I'm going to fund some cyber, some things to prevent hacking and cybersecurity. It's up to you, Bob. I mean, are you?
I'm working hard on that. Cybersecurity, thankfully, is a important investment thesis for us. We put a lot of money to work there and come up with a lot of great companies and great solutions, but it's a scary thing. I mean, we're at the edge of some bad stuff happening, and without some great cybersecurity, there's not going to be any end in sight to it.
Hey, Bob, we had Steve Case on last week, and he's made a big deal about Rise Above or investing. What is it? What's the name of his?
That's a new Cadillac commercial.
No, Rise Above is what we did a long time.
Rise of the Rest.
Rise of the Rest. Thank you. That's what I'm looking for.
You're welcome.
He really says most of the investing goes to Silicon Valley, but he does say that your area, Boston, gets a lot of that money too. What do you think about the prices on deals that you can make with venture capitalists in Boston versus Silicon Valley?
Yeah, I don't know if there's all that much difference. The Valley might be slightly inflated over what we'd find in Boston. And for us, it's Boston, New York. We kind of look at it as one big beltway of investment opportunity. We think of those interchangeably. But if I compare Boston and that beltway, it's probably very similar. Pricing, you asked the question opening up with things frothy. Pricing is a little higher, but I think it's all reasonable and manageable. And we were talking, or you were talking a few moments ago about the IPO lineup coming up here over the next few weeks. It's pretty amazing, but these are all companies of substance. This isn't the pet puppet or the sock puppet at pets.com in 1999.
They're companies of substance, but they're not necessarily companies of profit, and some of them also admit they have no path to profitability. Is that a problem?
If they don't have a path to profitability, it will inevitably be a problem. Surely it will be. At some point, you have to pay the fiddler, so that will certainly be a problem. We can't be working out at Jimmy's yard sale every day of the week trying to figure out how we get earnings, but the companies have sizable user growth. They have they're transformational. I mean, I look at Lyft, which is the little brother of the two between Lyft and Uber that we find in terms of where it is today. But it's a transformative company in terms of what it's doing.
It is, and I love what they do as a consumer and using both those companies. But I am talking about those two companies in particular. Lyft talking about how it may not ever become profitable. And some of the drivers for Uber out in LA this week are threatening to go on strike because they've just been asked to say that they can only take 60 cents per mile versus the 80 cents a mile that they had been charging. They say that they can't make money on that. If you get to the point where you're treating them as contractors, not employees, and that's pretty important to both of those company structures, and then you have them saying that they're going to have to take less and less money because that's the only way you get to a profit, it just seems to me like there's something that could potentially break there along the way.
Yeah, it's a complicated business to say the least, and it's not without challenges, but great things never are. So if we're looking to change the world as these companies are, it would be naive to say that they can do it quickly and easily. It'll be tricky. I can't imagine a scenario where both Lyft and Uber aren't wildly profitable businesses. I don't know when. I'm not on the inside of those businesses. I wish I was on the inside looking out, but those are, to me, very, very strong companies. And we'll start to see different ways and different fees and different services that they provide. I mean, look at Uber today, what they're doing with Uber Eats and so many other affiliated services that they offer today that continue to tap into new revenue streams that will be there and available for them. And they're really too critical to not succeed. I mean, we looked at the banks back in '08 and we talked about too big to fail. Well, these companies to us in our daily lives are too important to fail. They're just critical and instrumental in what we're doing each and every day. I can't imagine a life without Uber and Lyft. I mean, that is critical. I came here this morning in an Uber car. Mm-hmm. Really important to what I'm doing.
No, I agree. I use Uber every week, and for the kids getting places too. It's pretty important. But just because it's good for me doesn't necessarily mean I want to invest at the levels they're talking about.